It was June. The air in Austin was thick and hot. Even after sunset, I was 18 years old. I walked into my house holding my high school diploma, the tassel still swinging from my fingers. The first thing I noticed was the silence, the way my footsteps echoed on the hardwood floor. The house was empty, not just quiet. Empty. The living room sofa was gone. The rugs were gone. The photos that lined the hallway, just pale rectangles on the wall where they used to be. On the cold kitchen island, where my honor roll certificates had been pinned, there was just a single white envelope. My hand didn't shake. I felt disconnected, clinical. I opened it. It was my mother's handwriting. It said, "We had to choose. You were the strong one. We know you'll be fine." I read it twice. Then a third time. This wasn't a moment of sadness. It was a moment of clarity. This wasn't a family. It was a transaction. And I had just been zeroed out. Have you ever been told that your strength was a good reason to be left alone? Let me know your story down in the comments. That note wasn't a random act of cruelty. It was a conclusion. It was the final entry in a ledger I'd been forced to balance my entire life. I was 15 when I realized my father, Keith, was a bad businessman. He had a failing real estate venture and blueprints for a duplex that were a structural nightmare. I stayed up for 2 nights with graph paper and a T-square, redrawing the entire floor plan. I was 15. He presented them as his own the next day. My thank you was a pat on the head and him saying, "You're good with details." Maya. I was 17 when I handed my mother, Brenda, my entire paycheck from the diner. $312. I'd worked 30 hours that week. On top of finals, she took it without looking at me and said, "This barely covers the electric. You should have gotten a better job." My brother, Liam, got a new laptop for school. I was using tape to hold my glasses together. It was never a family. It was a business. Liam was the asset they were investing in. I was the utility, the overhead. And on that June night, they simply decided to cut their losses. So I didn't cry. Crying was a luxury, a debit I couldn't afford. I sat in my 1998 Honda Civic, parked under an overpass on I-35. That was my new home. I took a napkin from the glove box and a pen, and I started to draw. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a business plan. I slept in that car for 5 nights. I showered at the community college gym. I used their library computers to apply for scholarships and grants I had no business getting. I sketched on napkins, on the margins of textbooks, on the back of receipts. I drew foundations. I drew support beams. I drew a life they couldn't touch. I worked 3 jobs. I went to community college, then State University. I graduated with highest honors. I got a junior architect job at a firm that nearly broke me. I was the first one in, the last one to leave. I learned. I saved. I didn't date. I didn't go out. I just built 15 years. Last week, I stood in my office in downtown Austin, the one with my name on the glass, MVA Design. I was holding a copy of Architectural Digest. On the cover was my face, looking out from a house of glass and steel I had designed. The headline read, "From Homeless to Visionary Maya's $8.5 million comeback." My success wasn't for them. It wasn't revenge. It was an audit, and the numbers were finally in my favor. The Architectural Digest feature didn't just generate clients, it went viral. My inbox, usually a calm stream of blueprints and contractor bids, became a flood. Congratulations from old professors, from former colleagues, from people I hadn't heard from in a decade. And then, one email stopped my heart. The sender, Brenda, my mother, 15 years of absolute, unbroken silence. The subject line, "Your article." I didn't feel sadness. I felt cold, a clinical curiosity. The email was short, 4 sentences. "Maya, I saw the article. Your father and I always knew you'd be a success. We are so proud. Perhaps we could talk." I read it. And a strange, bitter laugh caught in my throat. No apology. No, I'm sorry. We abandoned you in an empty house. No. I've wondered every day if you were safe. It was the kind of note you'd send to a distant cousin. It wasn't an apology. It was an opening bid. My hand trembled. Not with grief, but with a sudden, clarifying rage. Before I could even forward it to my therapist. Doctor. Read. My phone buzzed on the desk. An unknown number. A text message. Maya. It's Liam. I got your number from an old cousin. My brother. I saw the article. Listen. I know things were hard, but Mom and Dad are in a really bad spot. That real estate venture failed again. They're about to lose the house. I just stared at the screen. The 1-2 punch. It was coordinated. Brenda's email was the primer, the emotional lubricant. Liam's text was the invoice. This wasn't a reunion. It was a collections notice. I didn't text back. I just sat there and analyzed the mechanism. In toxic families like mine, everyone has a role. It's not a home. It's a dysfunctional play. I was the scapegoat. I was the one who was difficult because I saw the truth. I was the one who carried all the family's problems. All their debt, all their failures, until I became too heavy to carry, and then I was discarded. But Liam was the golden child. His prison just looked different than mine. His entire life, his entire sense of self, was built on earning their approval. He was the one who did everything right. The one who never questioned. The one who got the new laptop. He was their prize. But the thing about being a golden child is that you're not a person. You're a performance. His servitude was the price of his belonging. My freedom was the price of my abandonment. I wasn't angry at Liam. Not yet. I just saw him, a 30-year-old man, still a servant, still terrified to disappoint them. And they were sending him in to do their dirty work. They hadn't changed. They'd just run out of other people's money. I let the text sit for a week. The messages from Liam became more frequent. Maya, please. They're desperate. Are you really just going to ignore me? This isn't fair. You have so much. My compassion had been a luxury they'd overdrafted for years. The account was closed. I finally replied. My fingers were steady. I didn't accuse. I didn't yell. I didn't relitigate the past. This wasn't an emotional problem. It was a business negotiation. I set the terms. Liam, I am willing to meet you. I am willing to get to know your wife, Chloe, and my niece, Ava. I typed the name Ava carefully. Menisa, a person I'd never met. But I need you to hear me. I will not be giving Mom and Dad $85,000. I will not be giving them any money. And I am not ready to see them. My relationship with you, if we're going to have one, is separate. Those are the terms. I hit send. The line was drawn, not in sand, but in concrete. Liam's reply was almost instant. Maya, you can't be this selfish. After everything they did for you, family is family. You're just going to let them be homeless. Every word was a small, dull blade of guilt I'd been trained to fall on. But the training was over. It wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation. I didn't text him back. I picked up my phone and called my corporate lawyer. Julian, I said, my voice calm. I have a personal matter. I think I need to set a professional boundary. This was no longer a family drama. It was a hostile takeover attempt. My no wasn't a negotiation. It was a lit match. 2 days later, they brought the fire to my door. My office, MVA Design, my sanctuary, the place I had built from nothing. I was in a blueprint meeting with a new client when I heard the shouting, Maya, we know you're in there. It was Brenda's voice, hysterical, unhinged. I stood up, my blood running cold. I walked out of the conference room. There they were. In my lobby, my mother, Brenda, and my father, Keith, pushing past my receptionist, who looked terrified. We drove 10 hours. Brenda screamed when she saw me. Her eyes were wild. 10 hours? And you won't answer your brother. You owe us. My father, Keith, just stood behind her, his face dark red. You wouldn't have this firm without us, he growled. We're your parents. My employees were staring. My client was staring. It was a calculated, public humiliation. I didn't yell. I looked at my head of security. Get them out. He was a professional. He had them out of the lobby in 30 seconds. But the damage was done. The silence they left behind was louder than the screaming. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. From a rage so pure, it felt like electricity. I canceled my meetings. I went home and called my therapist. Dr. Evelyn Reed. I don't understand. I told her, pacing my living room. I was prepared for the guilt. The emails. But this was violent. They were always cold. Never this. Dr. Reed's voice was the calmest thing I'd heard all day. Maya, she said, your success. That Architectural Digest article. It wasn't a celebration for them. It was a narcissistic injury. I stopped pacing. What? A narcissistic injury. She repeated. For 15 years, they've been telling themselves, and everyone else, a story, a narrative where you were the failure, and their decision to abandon you was justified. Your public success, your $8.5 million comeback. It didn't just challenge that narrative. It publicly destroyed it. It clicked. My success made them liars. Your no to the money, she continued, was a total loss of control. So, what you're seeing now is what we call an extinction burst. It's the desperate, violent, illogical lashing out of an abuser when they realize their old tactics of guilt and manipulation are no longer working. They're trying to regain control by any means necessary. This isn't chaos, Maya. It's a predictable and very dangerous pattern. I hung up, and for the first time, I wasn't just hurt. I was armed. I had a name for their poison. That night, there was a knock on my condo door. Not the buzz from the front desk. A knock? My body tensed. I looked through the peephole. It was a woman I'd never seen. In her early 30s, looking pale and terrified. She was holding a sleeping child. I opened the door. Just a crack. Are you Maya? She whispered. Clutching the little girl. I'm Chloe, Liam's wife. I let her in. My mind was racing. She put her daughter, Meniatza, Ava, on my sofa. The little girl never stirred. I'm so sorry, Chloe whispered, her eyes full of tears. I had to come. Liam. He's a coward. But you deserve the truth. She sat on the edge of my chair. It's not just that they're in debt, she said, her voice barely audible. They've been lying for 15 years. My blood went cold. Lying how Chloe took a shaky breath. They told everyone, the entire extended family, all their friends, that you were unstable. That at 18, you stole $50,000 from Keith's business safe and ran away to join a cult. The air left my lungs. $50,000. They claimed, she said, crying now. They claim they spent years and thousands of dollars trying to find you and get you help. That's why no one ever called you. No aunts. No uncles. No cousins. We all thought you were the criminal. We thought you were the one who had abandoned them. It all made sense. The 15 years of silence, the coordinated attack, the Architectural Digest article hadn't just been a signal that I had money, it had been a signal to the entire family that their story was a lie. They weren't just broke. They were cornered. This wasn't an abandonment. It was a cover-up. I stared at Chloe. The words hung in the air of my condo. Thick and toxic. What did you just say? He knew. Chloe repeated. Air voice cracking. Liam didn't know about the $50,000 lie. Not until I confronted him. But he knew you were abandoned. He was 15. He knew. She looked down at her hands. And the money, Maya, the money they used for his college education, his business degree, it was the money they should have used to help you. It was the money from, well, from whatever they did to get out of town so fast. That was it. That was the secondary twist. My brother wasn't just a passive golden child. He wasn't just an enabler. He was a beneficiary. He had been paid for his silence, paid with my life. I felt the last piece of the puzzle slide into place. The anger wasn't hot. It was absolute zero. It was a perfect, cold clarity. This wasn't a family, it was a criminal conspiracy. Chloe, I said, my voice sharp. Are you and Ava safe? We're at a hotel. She whispered, I'm scared of them. Good. I said, stay there. Don't tell Liam where you are. I'm handling this now. As soon as she left, I called Julian. Julian, I said, we're moving from defense to offense. I want 5-year restraining orders. For me, for Chloe, and for her daughter, Ava, and I want them now. The court papers were served the next day. The extinction burst. Dr. Reed had warned me about. It went nuclear. The escalation was no longer about public humiliation. It was about terror. That night, my phone buzzed. A new, unknown number. It wasn't a text. It was a picture, a photo, taken from a distance, through a chain-link fence. My 4-year-old niece, Ava, on a preschool playground, holding a red ball. My heart stopped. Then, a second message came through. It would be a shame if she had to grow up without a mother. 2. This wasn't a balance sheet. This wasn't accounting. This was a declaration of war, and they had just threatened a child. I was done running. I was done reacting. I was done being the girl in the empty house. I used a new, prepaid phone. I texted my father's number. Starbucks. 6th and Lamar. Tomorrow, noon. Just you and Brenda. No police. No lawyers. His reply was instant. We'll be there. I was there at 11:45. I chose a table in the back corner. I had a full view of the door. I didn't order anything. They walked in at noon, and I was shocked by how small they looked. Older, tired. But their eyes were still arrogant. They still looked like they were the ones owed something. They sat down. Brenda tried to smile. Weak. Trembling thing. Maya. Honey. She started, her voice syrupy. This has all been a misunderstanding. I held up my hand. I didn't call you here to reconcile. I said. My voice was low, cold, and carried in the coffee shop noise. I called you here to tell you it's over. Brenda's smile faltered. Keith's eyes narrowed. I'm not here to discuss my feelings. I continued. I'm here to state the facts. Fact 1. For 15 years, you have run a malicious smear campaign, telling the entire family I stole $50,000 and ran away to a cult. That's slander. Fact 2. You contacted my brother for the explicit purpose of extorting $85,000 from me. Fact 3. When I refused, you staged a violent, harassing scene at my place of business. And fact 4. I leaned forward last night. You sent a photograph of my 4-year-old niece to my phone with a direct, credible threat against her and her mother. That's a criminal offense. Brenda's face crumpled. This, she hadn't prepared for. We just wanted our family back. She whimpered. No, I said, my voice like ice. You wanted my money, and you wanted my silence. You don't get either. Keith's fist hit the table. You ungrateful girl, he hissed. After everything we did for you, you owe us. I just looked at him. I owe you nothing. I slid a blue legal folder across the table. Inside that folder, I said, is a copy of the permanent 5-year restraining order that was granted this morning. It covers me, Chloe, and Ava. If you come within 500 feet of our homes, our cars, or our workplaces, you will be arrested. Also inside that folder is a letter drafted by my lawyer. It's addressed to every aunt, uncle, cousin, and family friend you have ever spoken to. It details, with clinical precision, the 15-year smear campaign, the $50,000 lie, the extortion, and it includes a copy of the police report for the threat against Ava. Brenda's face was white. That letter has not been sent yet, I said. It sits in my lawyer's outbox. If I ever hear from you again, if you ever contact Liam, if you so much as drive on Chloe's street, I will hit send. I will not just ruin your reputation. I will personally fund the civil and criminal lawsuits that will ensure you die with absolutely nothing. I stood up. The meeting was over. Goodbye, Brenda. Goodbye, Keith. My mom looked up, her eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen before. Maya, please. I didn't stop. I walked out of the coffee shop, into the bright Austin sun, and I never, ever looked back. When I walked out of that coffee shop, the bright Austin sun hit my face, and I didn't look back. The following weeks were silent, but it was a new kind of silence, not the echoing, empty house silence I'd grown up with. This was the silence of peace, the silence of a closed door. Julien Melavier confirmed the 5-year restraining order was permanent. The foreclosure on my parents' house went through. The letter to the family, I never had to send it. Chloe, armed with the truth, had told Liam's side of the family. The story unraveled. The lies they had built their lives on for 15 years collapsed. They were ostracized, and with their credit gone and their reputation in ruins, they disappeared. They just faded away. A month later, I was in my office late at night. I opened my laptop and unlocked an old, encrypted spreadsheet. I'd started it when I was 18. Living in my car, I called it the ledger. It wasn't just about money. Though the numbers were all there, the $50,000 lie, the $85,000 demand, it was also the cost of textbooks, the interest on my student loans, the price of every meal I'd skipped, the rent on the storage unit, every cost, every betrayal, every line item of my survival. I stared at the grand total. A life's worth of debt they had forced onto me. And then, I hit delete. It wasn't a balance sheet. It wasn't accounting. It was just over. 6 months later, my condo, for 15 years. This place was my fortress. Quiet, clean, perfectly controlled. Now, it's loud. I was sitting on the floor, surrounded by balloons. Neats. Ava, who was now turning 5, ran past me, shrieking with laughter as my brother, Liam, chased her. Chloe was in my kitchen laughing with my friend Sophia as they put candles on a cake. Ava ran to me, holding up a lopsided tower of Legos. I built a house. Aunt Maya. I smiled, helping her fix the foundation. This was a new kind of architecture. For so long, I was taught that blood is thicker than water. I learned that's not true. Blood is just biology. Real family, the kind that lasts, isn't found in blood. It's built on respect, on safety, and on choice. I realized you have to be willing to let go of the family you were born into, to finally make room for the family you truly belong to. Liam caught my eye from the kitchen and smiled. A real smile, one without fear. I smiled back. It took me 15 years to learn that no is a complete sentence and that goodbye is the ultimate act of self-love. If my story helped you, please share it with one person who needs to hear that they are not alone. And let me know in the comments what's one boundary you set that helped you build your own life. I ignored the statues on the patio. I ignored my father, whose face was a terrible shade of pale crimson, and my sister, who was looking at the drones, then at me, then back again. As if her brain was refusing to connect the two, I looked at David. Log the security breach. We'll deal with Ryan on Monday. Have legal send him a cease and desist. And a warning. Understood. Ma'am. I finally turned to my family. My voice was calm. It was just factual. This is Aether AI. I said, gesturing to the silent black drones on the dock. This is my fantasy project. I held up the tablet for them to see. This, I said, pointing to the line item, is the $120 million government contract I was finalizing. And this is the rental agreement for this lake house. The one my company booked for your party. Dad? I looked at him. My failure paid for your entire birthday. It was a logistics test. A field test for our new event coordination protocol. I paused. You all failed. My mother, Linda, was the first to find her voice. It was a small, thin sound. But, Elara, your family. I looked at her, and I waited for the anger, the pain, the years of humiliation to well up, but for the first time, I felt quiet. I realized, in that moment, that you have to stop waiting for apologies from people who are incapable of self-reflection. You have to stop begging people to see you when they are committed to misunderstanding you. Letting go of a bloodline isn't a single, dramatic act of betrayal. It's the slow, painful, necessary act of choosing yourself. It's the quiet realization that the love you've been fighting for was never really there. And the only person who can save you is you, David. I said, turning away from them. Have the drones pack up all the catering, the filet mignon, the desserts, everything. Ma'am, my dev team in Palo Alto is working late on the Tokyo expansion. They deserve this. My real family. The one I built. This, I thought, is the architect's justice. My father saw success as a Porsche he was given. I saw it as the global logistics network that could deliver that Porsche. My sister saw success as a commission. I saw it as the code that could predict the market she worked in. My justice wasn't destroying them. It was the simple, undeniable, overwhelming fact that I built this. My revenge was the act of creation, a family built not on toxic obligation and jealousy, but on merit, respect, and a shared vision. Ma'am, David said, holding the door of the lead drone open for me. I walked past my family. I didn't look back. I stepped into the machine. The door hissed shut, sealing me away from their world, from their noise. Through the viewport, I saw them, small, speechless, and irrelevant. Bathed in the white light of my creation, the deep hum started again, and the dock fell away. Success isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the quiet hum of an engine you built yourself. If you've ever built your victory in silence, share this story. Let them know.